Hey there, fellow Planeswalkers, it's Steve for Collector Mania, and we are continuing on our Two-Headed Giant Alternate Tuesday series. So, this is part B. Last week we did Regna the Redeemer, so if you haven't checked that out, go back and check it out. I'll put a link in here somewhere so you can get to it a little easier. As I said in the previous video, basically these two deck lists are completely separate from each other. They cannot share cards, and that's, from what I understand, normal Two-Headed Giant rules, so you won't see Soul Ring in both decks or so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. There are a few considerations to keep in mind that way. But with that, let's go ahead and break in here. We've got Krav the Unredeemed. So 4 colors and a black, legendary creature demon. Partner with Regna the Redeemer. If you haven't seen Partner yet, it's when this creature enters the battlefield, target player may put Regna into their hand from their library, then shuffle. So really cool ability. I mean, especially if you kind of want to run these true two-headed giants fashion, where one of your your partner essentially has this in their deck, and then you have Regna in your deck, and then you play it, and then they can go find part A, part B, so on and so forth. Interesting idea, I'd say. There's an unwritten rule essentially with these guys that they can be partnered up in the command zone, which is really cool for us, of course. It was an interesting idea. I don't know why they didn't just stick with partner as it was, but changes had to be made, I guess. So anyway, activated ability. So pay 1 black, sacrifice X creatures. Target player draws X cards and gains X life. Put X +1/+1 counters on Krav the Unredeemed. Really powerful ability. Really good at just making Krav, a giant monster, and also just drawing us a bunch of cards, which is one of the main things I want to do all the time. And then keeping in mind, Regna, her main ability triggers off life gain, so that's a way to partner up once again and, just kind of have that strong synergy. With that, let's go ahead and break into the deck here. So, first up, we've got a Cryptbreaker. So, early game, it's a great way for us to populate our graveyard and just make a bunch of tokens. Also can draw you some cards slowly but surely, kind of thing. I just thought it was a pretty cool include. Then we've got Blood Artist. Once again with Regna, this is a great include. A little bit of life gain here and there, since we're kind of playing a little bit of aristocrat style, not so much, but a little bit. This actually works wonderfully. Bloodghast, there are a few creatures in here like Bloodghast and Reassembling Skeleton that are just great for coming back from the graveyard on their own. Just get into that loop where you play your land, get the Bloodghast back, sacrifice it, then draw a card. Next turn you play another land, get the Bloodghast back. It just ends up becoming a really good loop. And then next up we've got a Skirsdag High Priest. So great way to make tokens. Since we're going to be sacrificing so many creatures anyway, the Morbid's going to trigger all the time, and then having 5/5 giant flyers is great. Burnished Hart, a little bit of ramp. Cemetery Reaper, some more token making. Grim Haruspex, great way to draw cards. Ophiomancer, if you want to think about this as kind of like a mind's eye, especially with our commander, you just make a snake, sack a snake, gain a life, and then just continue on every turn. Really quite powerful. Pawn of Ulamog, another good token maker. Vampire Nighthawk, as I said, with Regna, one of the main things we want to be doing is gaining life, so Vampire Nighthawk works perfectly into that strategy. Yahenni Undying Partisan, amazing card, one of the best sack outlets that's been printed in the last couple of years. I really love this guy for when a huge board wipe's coming down, I don't know, Decree of Pain, where they're going to draw a whole bunch of cards and get a whole bunch of benefit. You can just sacrifice all your guys, and then they don't get the benefit from you, and then you have an indestructible Yahenni that gets a whole bunch of +1/+1 counters from everybody else's creatures dying, so it just works perfectly. And then we've got a Bloodline Keeper, so some tokens. On the flip side here, we've got a Lord of Lineage. So I don't really anticipate us flipping this over too much, but if it does, it's going to be, very, very effective, and that's one of the main things with this card is it turns all of your vampires into nightmares. Like, if you think about it, go back to Yahenni, all of a sudden it's got +2/+2. That's pretty powerful. And then we've got a Crypt Ghast, Disciple of Bolas, Erebos. I love making it so my opponents can't gain life, so this card works perfectly into that. Plus, it's just a good card draw engine as well. And since we're going to be gaining a whole bunch of life anyway, it doesn't matter to us that we're going to be paying the 2 life to draw the card. Jasu Ves, Lich Knight. So great way to make tokens, and also it's a good finisher. It's like Army of the Damned, but just on a guy, which actually works really well in my opinion. Kalitas, great token maker, really, really effective. I've been playing this in more and more decks. I'm really happy it's rotated out of standard and the price has gone down. Liliana's Reaver, I think this card is kind of underrated. I mean, the Death Touch 4/3, it actually makes it so no one wants to block, so you usually get those tokens, and I think that's actually pretty cool. Sifter of Skulls, another good token maker. Solemn Simulacrum, of course, we're going to be sacrificing creatures. This is a great one to sacrifice. Whisper, Blood Liturgist. So this is a brand new card from Dominaria that I actually built an entire commander deck around, and I can put a link in here for that too if you're looking for that deck list. It's a lot of fun, actually. I've been playing it for about 2 or 3 weeks now, and I can tell you the games are just insane. But anyway, in the deck, great way to sacrifice a few of those smaller tokens and get back something a little bit bigger, you know, so on and so forth. I've got Indrik Sar, great way to make tokens again. Ghoulcaller Gisa. I know I've talked about this several times in other videos, but this card is like going up in price. Like every time I look at it, it's a little bit more expensive, and it totally makes sense why. It's an amazing token maker that just turns zombies, you know, onto the grid or onto the battlefield all the time. Really, really good. Makes you armies, and then with Krav, you can just sacrifice all of them, draw a whole bunch of cards, and gain a bunch of life. Great Merchant of Asphodel, of course. Grave Titan. Kakusho, something we also want to be sacrificing most of the time. Nirkana Revenant. So this is actually being reprinted in Battle Bond. That's mainly why it's featured here, but doubling up on our swamps is always amazing, of course. Reaper from the Abyss, once again, sacrificing a whole bunch of creatures, so this Morbid trigger will always happen, which is really good. Skeletal Vampire. Eric actually pointed this one out to me. I totally forgot about it. You want to make those bat tokens and then just keep turning them into cards and whatnot. Wurmcoil Engine. Abhorrent Overlord. So this is one that I've been putting in more and more decks just to make a bunch of little tiny flyers. I think that's actually pretty effective, especially for knocking somebody out if they're pretty low health, and then being able to just sacrifice them, draw cards is also pretty effective, especially because you can sacrifice the Abhorrent Overlord to Krav before the trigger comes back and bites you in the butt. Overseer of the Damned. This is another card that I've been playing in more decks. A flying 5/5 that makes you zombie tokens is actually really good. And then Sepulchral Primordial. I always say it wrong. Everybody always gets on me about it, but I heard it once that way, and now I can't not say it that way. 5/4 Intimidate that brings back 3 creatures from other people's graveyards. That's really, really powerful. And it's an amazing card with Krav, because then you can just sacrifice those other creatures if you don't need them, you know. And I've got another new card, so Archfiend of Despair. So 6 colors, 2 black, creature demon flying. Your opponents can't gain life, as I said before with Erebos. I love that effect. At the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. I love this card. I am so ready to put it into my Rakdos build, it's not even funny. And I actually think it works pretty well here, especially with some of the effects that we'll get into a little bit later. Now we've got Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded. So this is rounding out our creatures. So 5 colors, 3 black, flying trample, pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature, search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle your library. 8/8. So of course, since we're making so many tokens, this actually works really well for us. We can turn not only our draws into, you know, our tokens into card draw, but our tokens into search, which is actually really powerful. Breaking into our artifacts here, we've got a Soul Ring. Blade of Selves, you know, make all those tokens, then before the end of combat, sacrifice all those creatures if you need to. Charcoal Diamond. Mind Stone. Thought Vessel. Skull of Ramos. Thran Dynamo. Whip of Erebos, good recursion. Bitter Blossoms, we're breaking into our enchantments here. Really good for making a bunch of tokens, which we're trying to do. The life loss is actually kind of balanced out by Krav's ability, so that works for us. And then, once again, having a bunch of tiny flyers actually usually works pretty well for finishing off opponents once they get to low health. Necropotence, another good way to draw cards. Phyrexian Arena, amazing way to draw cards, of course. Grave Pact, since we are doing a whole bunch of sacrificing, this is an effect that we want to have, and we double up on it here with Dictate of Erebos. Palace Siege. Now, I just love the synergy between this and Regna. Having this in our deck and then choosing the the dragon side at the beginning of your upkeep. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain life, or gain 2 life. Like that triggers Regna. It fulfills all of the check marks essentially. Plus the con side can be good too sometimes. I've got a Sanguine Bond, so as I was talking about with that demon, something like this, that's just amazing. So whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Can get pretty hairy pretty fast. No Breaking Tori instant speed spells here. So we've got a Spoils of Blood. I really put this one in here mainly because we're going to be sacrificing a whole bunch of token creatures, so at the end of turn we sacrifice a bunch of creatures and then we can just make one giant creature. That could be kind of cool, especially if it's coming to our turn and we can just finish somebody off with it, so on and so forth. It's a card that I've been playing around with for a couple of years now. I keep putting it in decks and keep taking it out, and I don't know, it just hasn't quite found its home for me yet, and this may be it. Tragic Slip, Go for the Throat, Hero's Downfall, Stunning Reversal, another new card, so 3 colors and a black, instant speed. The next time you would lose the game this turn, instead draw 7 cards and your life total becomes 1. Exile Stunning Reversal. So if you want to think about it this way, I think this card actually works amazingly in this deck. For example, if somebody's trying to kill you with commander damage, you can actually play this, sacrifice a whole bunch of creatures, come back from that 1 life total, and then stay in the game, have a whole bunch of cards, and then it's just a weird kind of like fog thing that happens. So pretty cool card in my opinion. I've got another new card, Thrilling Encore. So this is going to become a mono black staple like right away. I think everybody needs to pick up the copies of this card as soon as they can. So 4 colors and a black, instant speed. Put on the battlefield under your control all creature cards in all graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. That just reads amazing to me. I mean, so good. Think about it. You cast, I don't know, any board wipe, Damnation. Right after that, you followed up with this. Yeah, that feels good, I tell you. Then we've got a Wretched Confluence, one of my favorite cards of all time. Then we're breaking to our sorcery speed spells here. So Diabolic Intent is another reprint from Battle Bond that we're getting. I like the new artwork quite a bit, actually. It looks pretty cool. Featuring these Azra, which we don't know that much about quite yet. I'm sure we're going to learn a little bit. They kind of remind me of the Draenei from World of Warcraft. At least that's, I think that's their name. I never played the game, but Eric always tells me that that's what they look like, and they definitely remind me of them. So 1 colorless and a black has an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a card, and put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. So pretty cool card in my opinion. Dread Summons, so just an interesting way. I'm not sure on this one. I'd have to play around with it. It was kind of like in the back of my head, like I kind of want to play this card and see how it works here. It doesn't really help our partner out, Regna, just because they don't really have a whole lot of ways to recur their stuff, so that might be the downfall of this card. If I wasn't worried or concerned about the partner aspect of this, I'd probably play it automatically just because it makes so many 2/2 zombies. But we'll see. I don't know. Playtesting will kind of, field this one out a little bit. Then we've got a Toxic Deluge, a Victimize, a Virtuous Maneuver, another new card, 2 colors and a black, sorcery. For each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend returns a creature card from their graveyard to their hand. Each foe sacrifices a creature they control. So, pretty powerful, actually. I will be playing this, outside of Two-Headed Giant all the time. It's a really cool card. I will most likely always choose myself as a friend, and the other three players as foes. I mean, that's just the kind of player I am. But really, really cool. Then Damnation, and then a Decree of Pain, of course. And I think we're breaking into our lands here. Yep. We've got a Bajuka Bog, of course. A Cabal Coffers, Cabal Stronghold, Crypt of Agadim, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, Westvale Abbey. Really good land if you haven't played with this one yet. Making tokens is kind of what we're trying to do, but being able to sacrifice 4 or 5 tokens that have been left over and then transform it to Ormondal, Profane Prince, I mean, that's pretty cool too. Then we've got some swamps, and then of course, checking out the new artwork for all these lands. I love pretty much all of them. I mean, probably right now the island's my favorite. If you haven't seen the artwork yet, they're stunning. But with that is the end of the deck tech. As I said in the last one, I am planning on making a partner version of this as well, so a black-white deck, so look forward to that. I'm not sure when we're going to release it. We're kind of firing on all cylinders here, trying to figure out what decks we want to make, what gameplay we want to do, and so on and so forth. But anyway, with that, I hope you have all enjoyed as always, and we will see you guys next time.